Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode from Rogue-lite Gaming. Balancing difficulty in games is a nightmare. The balancing act between frustration and toughness is so tough, in fact, that many games either fall too far onto the side of being easy in order to be accessible, or fall too far to the side of difficulty that it breeds more frustration because of the faulty mechanics and design. Thankfully, though, Rogue Legacy gets the balance just right. Rogue Legacy came out early last week, claiming to be a special brand of roguelike, the Rogue-lite. Rogue-lite is Stellar Door Games' solution to the traditional frustrations that come with the roguelike genre. It has managed to keep the difficulty level of a traditional roguelike game, but allows upgrades and money gained on previous characters to be used on fresh ones. This adds a constant feeling of progression to the game, which, while deaths can be momentarily frustrating, makes it so the game never becomes so frustration-inducing that you might want to quit. If there was ever a way to rank games on replayability, Rogue Legacy would certainly be among the top contenders. The castle is procedurally generated, meaning that every time you re-enter the castle, the rooms will be completely different than last time. There are 4 areas in total, offering completely different types of environments, enemies, and bosses, all with a different layout each time. For those that find themselves in love with a particular layout, though, the game even has an option to unlock the Architect, an NPC encountered at the beginning of each life that will offer to lock down the layout of the castle, but at the cost of 70% of the gold that you obtain for that run. The randomness doesn't stop simply with the dungeons, though. Each time you die, the game offers a selection of 3 of your previous character's children. These children come in different classes, which offer very diverse playstyles, as well as unique traits. Traits in Rogue Legacy provide a very unique way of offering variety, as each one changes the gameplay in its own very strange way. My personal favorite was Vertigo, which causes the entire world to be shown upside down. The player's controls stay the same, but everything else, literally everything else, is upside down, which causes some pretty nauseating crazy situations. Nothing is quite like jumping up from the ceiling to fight monsters, especially when you know you are defying the very laws of physics. Other traits range from a child being a homosexual, which obviously has no effect at all on gameplay, nostalgic, which causes the game to look color-drained and changes the loading messages, dyslexic, which makes it rather difficult to read, short, tall, or even have Tourette's, causing your character to shout random syllables in a bubble above their head as they perform mundane tasks. There's even a trait for those who, much like me, have the tendency to laugh at fart jokes. I survived for probably the longest on several of my characters who had irritable bowel syndrome, which causes your character to randomly release epic amounts of gas as you perform otherwise normal tasks. Hilarity always ensues. Being an RPG, it would be awfully disappointing though if the game didn't feature any customization for your character. Throughout the dungeon, the player can find chests that contain blueprints for new armor, which can be purchased at the blacksmith the player encounters before entering the castle. Each armor has a unique coloration, but beyond that, they largely look the same, and any noticeable differences in the way a character looks is generally decided by their class or gender. Beyond armor, there is an enchantress, which can enchant each piece of your gear with some pretty standard enchants. Some allow the character to dash to and fro, some increase coin gain, and some even cause monsters to hit harder. Thankfully, the enchantments add a nice layer of customization on top of the armor color swaps, since each piece of armor can have its own enchant, and these enchants can even stack. This allows the player to really combine them in whatever way they see fit. Want a quadruple jump? Go for it. Triple dash plus a double jump? Done. The variety of possibilities is really quite astounding. After dying several hundred times, figuring out the nooks and small things that could extend my life by precious seconds, and only a few issues, really stood out among an extremely well-designed game. The most troublesome, and perhaps something that many people are reasonably expecting from a roguelike, is the inability to aim the direction of your sword swings. While the swing has a wide upward arc and a decent swing distance, there are plenty of enemies which can travel through walls and other solid objects, especially ones below the player. The arc of the swing leaves the back and bottom of a character exposed, so when fighting multiple enemies, I believe the most common one causing this was the Char, a small smoky orb-like creature that charges the player and does damage by running into them. It quickly becomes a problem that makes survival frustratingly difficult. Not because the enemies are hard, many die in 1 to 2 hits, but because the lack of an ability to counter an attack from the bottom while simultaneously holding off multiple attacks from other directions. The second issue I found annoying at times was the layout of some of the traps. Yes, I understand that traps are meant to be difficult, but a few of them, especially some of the firebolt traps, can sometimes be organized in such a fashion as to make traversal of a room without being hit require the management skills on movement of a Pro League StarCraft player, or perhaps one of the few people in the world that has managed to complete the Toho series. This happened, of course, much less often than the directional attack issue, but it still could prove to be a blocker when the only room connecting me to places I had not explored and could still reasonably explore at my level were blocked by variable force death traps. Finally, the biggest issue I ran into was spellcasting, weapon-throwing enemy spells traveling through walls. If a caster enemy gets close enough to a wall, their spells will phase through the wall as if it isn't there, which for some enemies I understand is intended, but others it just becomes increasingly annoying. Sure, the player that can attack through a wall, if they're well within the melee range and standing with their face plowed into the wall like they're trying to find a secret door. But the whole deal I found to be increasingly annoying is more and more enemies would inhabit bigger rooms of the castle, and enemies who one might not think could be able to reach the player certainly can. More than anything, Rogue Legacy takes just one more time to a whole new level. The addicting gameplay, the fast-paced nature of it all, and the fantastic traits and humor that comes with them is all executed wonderfully. For fans of roguelikes, or even those who like games like Dark Souls, I couldn't recommend the game more. For those on the fence, buy it. For those who don't want to buy it anyway. I can't wait to delve back into its wonderful world of dangerous enemies, failure, and rewarding success. And I can tell you right now that I will be doing so for plenty of time to come. Rogue Legacy from Cellar Door Games, ladies and gentlemen, gets a 9 out of 10.